In the last episode, we traced Kalyan's journey of traveling with tribals and interning with a farmer to finally start Protovillage, a prototype of a resilient village community at the Karnataka-Andhra Pradesh border. In this episode, we explore Protovillage's own journey in becoming self-reliant, rethink typical concepts of education and economy, and discuss the way forward. Let's dive in.
So how about we build a network of families and take the complexity to the next level? And that's when the prototype of a village came about. We started with that definition of resilience, where I said harmonious interdependence, ecologically sustainable means, and self-reliance in 9 basic needs.
Right.
And those 9 basic needs are food and water security, shelter, clothing, health, energy, connectivity, disaster management, economy, and education.
Nice.
We started work on this barren patch of land. You'd seen it earlier.
Yeah. So give us a sense of what all is there today. So when I had come 8 years ago, I remember there was that one, what is turned into the visitor center.
Yeah.
And we were building the battery house.
Right.
So now I can see there are many different pieces. I have seen many parts, but just if you could.
Right. So we built solutions for all the basic needs, all the 9 basic needs.
Okay.
So now we are almost food secure. We're waiting for our fruit trees to start fruiting. Of course, they take their own sweet time. And that apart, we're mostly food secure. And water, we've harvested a little over 7 crore liters of rainwater over the last bunch of years. And remember, this is a rain shadow region.
Exactly.
Right, and drought prone. And while one needs to drill up to about 1,000 feet elsewhere, on this land right now, thanks to all the water harvesting efforts, we find water at about 60 feet.
Wow.
And so that also adds to the green cover, right? It's a cycle.
It's a cycle that
right. Each one feeds the other, that kind of thing. And we've just, so food and water, shelter, except the houses for all of us, we have a lot of common spaces. And we believed we need to start with common spaces because that allows us to bond.
Yeah.
Even better. And not like entitlement and all of that.
Everyone has their own.
Yeah. So we didn't want to start with that.
Yeah.
But now that the culture is established, we are ready to have our own houses and all of that. Hopefully, this year is when we'll have houses. Everybody has a dream design already.
Oh, lovely.
Okay. So they all have their own. We're all giving each other a small unit of land within Protovillage. So where we can probably
shape how we want our space. Nice.
It's all based on common set of principles, but designs are their own, dreams are their own. Clothing, just short of growing our own cotton, we are doing everything else. And and I think eventually in a couple of years, I think we'll be able to do that. And energy, we're not connected to the grid. We've remained off grid right from day one.
Amazing. So everything that I've been experiencing over the last day has been off the grid.
Yeah.
Okay.
So solar, wind, and biogas.
Wow.
So
okay.
These are the 3 sources of our energy. And the next, health. I always believe that, and I've been told by many people that health is a function of your emotional environment and your own capability to deal with your perceptions and all of those things.
Right.
So that realm of things, and then decent food and clean drinking water. Right. That takes care of most of the preventive healthcare thing, and cleanliness, of course. So those are the 4 things that we focus on. But this year, we are trying to proactively create a sustainable rural healthcare solution as well. That might take a couple of years.
Yeah, of course.
But as I always say, Protovillage is where we prototype systemic solutions and keep refining because something will go wrong, and then we just keep doing it. It's not about scale for us. So then disaster management, the only disaster that we see possible in this region is drought. So drought proofing, one way to do it is through building abundance, right? That nature allows you to build. So we are regenerating that capacity within ourselves to just do that. And economy and education finally. So those I felt over these years while we worked on several designs of economy, just for fun, right at the beginning, I started realizing that it's far more important than I understood it to be. And it's not about money, but as a popular incentive, right? That's an incentive everybody seems to understand. And at the end of the day, it's an incentive. And 10 years ago, I would go to a village and I'd say, money, koi maina nahi hai, it's let's live happily together and all of those things, which are not wrong. But those are the kind of statements that create that transition shock.
Right.
Nobody wants that to happen because they're too comfortable. So over the years, I've learned how do we leverage their interest in that incentive to actually get them to do what is right. And by right, I don't mean anything mystical. By right, I mean anything that adds up to the natural ecosystems and anything that adds up to making us stronger as a community. Those are the right things.
Understood.
And so how about we use economy, design it in such a way that no matter what they do for that incentive, they are actually adding up to these two. Right? And similarly, if economy can incentivize you to do the right thing, something should tell you what the right thing to do is and how to do it. That should become the domain of education.
Got it.
So it's like in the current system, what's happening is, on one hand, we know that cutting a tree is a wrong thing, but the incentive isn't cutting the tree.
Right.
Lying is a bad thing, wrong thing. Lying is what works.
Right.
Corruption is what works. So our wisdom, our knowledge, our instinct points us in one direction, and our incentive points us in the exact different direction.
Right.
So the point is that over a period of time, we are distancing ourselves from our own nature.
Right.
Right, and that's also what leads us to feeling very stressed out because we are disconnected within. Right, and I felt, what if we're driven by the incentive because I see hungry kids in my family.
Right.
So incentive is more important. So I felt we need to recognize that too. How about we build these two in such a way that you learn the right thing, you're immediately incentivized to do the right thing.
Right.
Then doing the right thing becomes a habit. It's like dog training, right? That's how I was trained. That's how each one of us is trained. Here is a good thing. Here is an incentive. And over a period of time, that's how we can probably build a good society because it all adds up. Doing the right thing just becomes a habit. Now, I need to worry about one generation that is only driven by the incentive to do the right thing.
And once that habit sets in and they see others do it.
The next generation will do it just because that is the right thing to do.
Right.
Right. And many people will say it's a what is that, wild goose chase and all of those things. But the thing is, imagine the change from good to worse happened in 2 generations.
Right.
Why can't worse to good happen back in 2 generations? Right?
And also seeing this place, I think if you can, a forest proto-village from what I saw it to where it is now in less than a decade, then I think there is hope for change.
Yeah. So that's the whole idea. Now, last 7 years, we worked on our rural economic system. We took notes from many giants who have worked on those things earlier.
Right.
So many people from across the world have worked on similar ideas.
Who would these be?
So within India, there were like a bunch of Gandhians who worked, generations across on an idea called the rural economic zone.
Got it.
And I worked very closely with Professor Karnataka, who was in Wardha, and he told me a lot of literature about Sri Kumarappa and all these great, they're the giants. They understood the pulse. And what I did was, in discussions with Dr. Karnakaran, what I felt is that we need to take that system and make it so easy for a villager to execute.
Right.
That implementation thing should not need a ton
There
of,
shouldn't be friction.
yeah, it should be like butter, right? And that's what we did. We broke it down to principles so that it just becomes executable. Right from day one, you can go into village and say, I've got a few methods for you to earn a better livelihood. That's what they want to hear.
Right.
That's what you get them to hear. But over the course of them earning a better livelihood, they remind themselves that this is their true nature, right? I'm not harming soil, air, and water. I'm not harming any of my neighbors, but I'm making a better livelihood.
And who are the people who are there with you now? Because who have been your first followers and who all have then joined that journey after that?
So I wouldn't say followers at all.
Okay, point.
The thing is that 12 people joined right on the day we walked into this land from the village.
From Teklodu.
Yeah, from Teklodu and a couple of other villages around. Now some of them remain, a lot of them actually remain, and a lot of new people have also joined. We started 12, now we are about 18, and a total population of about 30 now. And then there are about 15 kids, not from within Proto, but eventually there will be kids from within Proto also. The thing is that kids got to learn, got to know about the kind of education that we were working on. The parents got interested. These are all kids from the villages around. They come, they live with us and they learn along with us. So so we worked on both economy and education for the last 7 years and built systems for both that we're happy with right now.
So there's the Maya Bazaar, which is the school.
Yeah. The school, we don't want to call it a school at all.
Right.
It's a learning center. With a motto of nothing can be taught.
I love that.
Yeah. I borrowed it from Sri Aurobindo.
Right.
And it's a beautiful thing. It makes you think that education happens when somebody is keen on learning, right? Like for example, you don't have to teach a little sapling how to do photosynthesis. It's born with that knowledge, for God's sake. So the thing is that we have to provide the right environment.
So when we talk about Maya Bazaar, can you tell us a little bit more about it? Because I found the name fascinating and you were telling me the story yesterday, how it came about and what happens there.
Yeah. So Maya Bazaar didn't have a name earlier. We just wanted to have a space for learning. And we experimented with Professor Sugata Mitra's idea of hole in the wall kind of learning. And we thought if we had to redesign education, where do we start and all of that? So we had a little room built, and then we left the kids in, equipped them with a computer, internet and everything in the village, and then we just let them be. And for 1 week they were just so busy, and after that we started seeing solar powered little boats without a hole. All of those things started coming out, and we started realizing some of these things even I cannot do. Right. So if I was there teaching them, I would have severely limited their ability to grow. Right, and to grow within the confines of what I knew. So I felt the best thing for all of us to do is to just get the hell out of their environment, and then make sure that from a distance, whatever they need, we just provide and help them with everything that they need, right? So they can just bloom, they can just start owning their learning and everything. So when we saw the magical possibilities that were coming out, that were emerging in terms of what the kids were learning, it was not electronics, it was not physics, it was not math, it was their ability to empathize with each other, the ability to just level the learning, right? I know something, you know something, let's just level up. So which was beautiful to watch, and we felt so many magical possibilities getting exchanged. And that night we were all sitting, the kids and the adults and everybody, and we started thinking, what should we name if we have to name this space? And then the movie names came about, a bunch of them, and somebody said Maya Bazaar, and it sounded like everybody agreed. And so that became Maya Bazaar.
Right.
And
that's where 15 children from outside?
Yeah. It started with 3.
Okay.
2 of our own, Rishabh and Trisha, and one kid that adopted us, Ugra, and then the others gradually they started joining. We never went out to say that we're running a learning center or anything at all, because in my mind it was always about the prototyping, and my kids were the prototypes of the system, and so it was always like that. I had the freedom to just work with them.
And Ugra's the one I think who went for the national skating.
Yeah, just yesterday he got back. He participated in the 37 national games also last year in Gujarat, and this year national level competition he went to.
And he's been teaching the other kids also.
Yeah. So there is no coach for them. They learn it all by themselves, and so it's interesting how they've learned to learn, and without us having to tell them, okay, the 8 steps to learning how to learn. No such thing. They have it in them to figure out how to learn. What we started changing about, I mean, as I started observing, is that we had to create a structure, right? A structure that is very fluid, and a structure that inspires them to learn, right? And their inspiration should be in such a way that they fall in love with their villages and their villageness. Right now, if you notice, kids in the villages and the cities, they learn the same thing.
Yeah.
So by the time they become 15, the kid in the village is no longer connected emotionally to their streams, to their forests, to their deserts, to their oceans, to whatever, the hills and the mountains and everything. And by 18, totally indifferent. Someone comes and mines off their hills, they don't care, because that's not where they see their aspirations taking them. It's in Bangalore, it's in Mumbai and all of that. So the without blaming the current education system, what I feel is lacking is an option for the same village kid. If he or she were to want to have a life in the village, there is no option.
Right.
So there is only one kind of education that drives people in a village also to have urban aspirations.
Right.
And if that education succeeds, we will not have villages anymore. Yeah. Villages will become intellectually bankrupt and eventually empty.
Yeah.
So that brings us a question as to, why do we even need villages? Right? What if we just urbanize everything?
Yeah.
That seems to be a legitimate solution these days. But I believe after the tribals, it is the villages that preserved the knowledge of how to coexist.
Right.
Codified in the form of traditions and various other things. That's where life, we could learn how a good life can be lived, right? And that knowledge of coexistence with the nature and with everybody else is so important that if we lose the villages, we just lose it all.
Taking a moment's detour though, because it's been on the back of my mind, and I just think it'll be helpful to make it more explicit. So, is the belief that villages are doing everything right, or the elements of coexistence, etc., are things that villages get right, and we should learn from them?
So I see it slightly, from farther away, in the sense that I see that we have lots of resources in the city.
Right.
Very few resources, the kind of resources that we are talking about in the tribals, and somewhere along the way are the villagers. Right. Least amount of peace, slightly more peace, most peace.
Right.
Highest amount of stress, lesser stress, least stress. Right. And so there is something. This is like the middle ground.
Right.
Where they were also tasked. I don't know who tasked, but they were also like carrying the flag of, or bearing the responsibility of preserving that knowledge. Right. We talk about diversity of culture. Where is the diversity of culture? Can you show me the diversity of culture in Bangalore, Mumbai and Delhi? Whereas if you go to the villages around those places, some remote villages, if there are any around those cities, that's where you would see the diversity of culture in terms of food, in terms of shelter, in terms of clothing, in terms of what they do and how they live. Right. That is so the culture is actually a translation of that knowledge of how to coexist with nature. Because in Rajasthan, you don't see, you would see people wearing a certain kind of clothes and you can recognize them in a crowd. Right. And that is because that's what their environment
was aligned to the environment.
Exactly. So now, if we in any region, in any bioregion, a village bears the responsibility of preserving that knowledge. When the villages become intellectually bankrupt, we lose that knowledge, and that knowledge is a legacy of thousands of years of experimentation and codification, and that's something that we cannot afford to lose, and that's why villages are important. And so I believe that while we have an option that lets kids who have an urban aspiration go there, there's nothing wrong. Migration out of choice is beautiful, but those kids, which I believe are like 80% of the population, who want to remain in the village, they don't have a choice.
Right.
So real education empowerment happens when you show them how to live abundantly right there, where they thought there is no life at all.
Right.
Right. And so to be able to build that education system, while talking about everything that the parents want their kids to learn. I talked about transition shock, right?
Yeah.
The first thing that they ask is, do they get certificate? Right? They don't even know what a certificate is. And do they learn math? Do they learn English? Do they learn science? Yes to all of that. How they learn it is different, right? And they learn it, and I'll just be very brief about how the model works. Is that in math and science and everything there are concepts, right? And in terms of inspiring them with contextual motivation to learn, right? This is what my context demands me to learn. We have the 9 basic needs.
Right.
We broke the 9 basic needs into activities that add up to fulfilling all the 9 basic needs. That comes to about 700 activities.
An activity would be something like
making a natural fertilizer.
Got it.
Let's say that's in the food security need, right? In the water security, you may learn how to do a contour trench and how to draw a contour line, etc., etc. So different activities. So 700 activities. We call each activity a mission.
Right.
Right, and then we tell the kids the difference between an activity, a project, and a mission. Mission is not something that you'd compromise on accomplishment. You've got to do it somehow or the other, and they get excited about doing it. And so they have these missions to achieve, and they always start with their current level of knowledge. Nobody tells them what they need to know. We don't present them algebra and trigonometry to learn.
Right.
We give them the missions to achieve.
Right.
And they go and they fall flat. Some somehow figure out, I can solve it with music. Let them be. They're the Newtons of the world. But the others, they fall flat and they say, okay, with whatever I know, I cannot seem to accomplish this mission. So what do I have to do? Then we show them these concepts as tools
to help
that allow them to accomplish the mission. So they grow up thinking math and science are tools.
Which is what they should be.
Which is what they should be. And so they learn the tools, always focusing on the mission. And the moment the mission is accomplished, we show how many people benefited from that mission. Right? If a farmer gets to understand how to make a natural fertilizer for his odd acreage, right? Then the kid has actually helped. Right. So the kid's knowledge of a concept helped the farmer. Right. The kid's knowledge of thermal physics, if it gives a bottle to a shepherd that keeps his water at pleasant temperature throughout the day, the knowledge of thermal physics, insulation, whatever, it has actually helped a shepherd who would suddenly start getting interested in this education. So that's how you can get the whole community to be invested in education, because all the global concepts are gradually becoming locally relevant.
Right.
Right? It's becoming useful. I'll give you an example of 2 kids who worked on linear programming when they were 15.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Not because their exams demanded it. Right. Nobody asked for linear programming in 10th.
Yeah.
I did when I was doing my engineering. Grumpily. The thing is, these guys learnt it because there was a real challenge. Our soil test showed that we could grow 12. Our resources could only allow 4 crops to be grown. So we had to choose those 4 that maximize the return.
Wow. Okay.
It was a real mission.
Right.
Right, and they tried algebra, they tried whatever they learnt, and then they figured that that's not helping them. And then from whatever little memory, I told them that might help, but don't ask me. So they figured it out. They took 6 months, they solved the problem. Now our farming model is based on
Amazing.
yeah. So imagine the number of farmers that get trained in this farming model, not knowing anything about linear programming, but knowing that the kids who learnt it were the ones who actually, do this. So we call this contextual, purpose-based learning. So first context, then the purpose, then the learning happens.
Nice.
So that's what is the education model.
Now, as you're sharing, I'm also just realizing that yesterday, I think over lunch, somebody was having a conversation with Vasu. He's 10 years old or so, and he was mentioning soil testing. And I'm just like, I don't know the last time I heard a 10-year-old explain soil testing and use that as a means to find evidence of what happened historically. Okay, so all of the dots are connecting.
So that way, I think that is what. And we've only spoken about the tools, which are science and math. And life doesn't throw challenges at us based on how much science we know.
Right.
Right. So then we thought there have to be. We classified all that we need to know into 4 categories. One is the tools that we just spoke about. The other is self, that starts with basic physiology, takes you all the way along that learning journey to figuring out how to balance your body, mind and spirit. To keep your body fit, mind alert, spirit happy. Right? How do you get into that practice?
Right.
Right, of constantly doing that. Then second is environment. Everything outside the self is environment.
Right.
There is a natural environment, there is social, there is political, there is economic, there is technological. There are learning journeys.
Right.
In each of these. Each is a learning journey. So you imagine each learning journey as a column in an Excel sheet.
Right.
Then the next one is expression, where you not only learn languages and every other thing that helps you express yourself. The key thing in expression is we let the kid ask the question all the time, that with all that I'm knowing now, how can I be useful in my own unique way?
Right.
Right, the same tool, you could use it in a different way for someone else's benefit. I could use it completely differently, right? So what is my unique way to contribute to the world with all that I'm learning? That is expression. And the last one is tools. So if these are the columns, what provides them with the contextual motivation, the needs, the 700 missions. So every mission, the kid is invested in it because he or she knows that their parents want that knowledge. Right? So the moment they go back home, they make a difference. Their neighbors see it. The community gets together. That education. So these kids, when they grow up, I don't see them really going and harming a tree or a bee or a butterfly or anything at all. Right? They wouldn't kill a snake. So they learn to respect everything. And these are the outcomes that we need, I think, to build that good society. So by March, I think we'll have the first version of a documented curriculum.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's what we're working towards right now. Yeah.
And so once they grow up, where does that take them? So now we've covered education, and so now that they have grown up, now they need to live a life. So what does the economic part of things look like?
Yeah. So our economic model is called Graamam, which is a short form of Graamina Arthika Mandali. It's a translation of rural economic zone. Right. So Graamam means anything to do with a village. So it is built on the ideas of Protovillage only. And as I said, the principles of Protovillage are not our own. Right? It's what the tribals believe, and it's what is common sense. It was built based on the inputs received from so many giants who have worked on a similar idea for a very long time. So it's in a nutshell what it is that it has to be a system that incentivizes people to preserve soil, air and water, nourish and nurture it, and to become stronger as a community.
Right.
How do we make these the goal of an economic system and make economic prosperity the consequence? Right. Whereas people can see it differently based on where they're looking at it from. I would see these two as the goals, money as the consequence. But the people we go and communicate it to, they might see that as the goal, and these are the consequences which are okay to have, not necessarily. But it's important. Now, how do we do that? So we, again, there are like 3 executable principles that we broke it down to. One is that any enterprise idea that we get, we break it down into a complete value chain,
Right.
end to end. And then if that enterprise idea, wherever it falls along the value chain, if it is 100% eco-friendly, in terms of not harming but actually nurturing soil, air and water, it's a good idea.
Right.
And all along the value chain it has to be the same. Right. So in some aspects of the value chain, it may be that given the times, right now we don't have the means to do it eco-friendly, right, but it has potential to become eco-friendly. It's okay, right? Because not everything is perfect at the start. So that is the first step that we do. That's the first check. And if that passes that filter, the next one is, for the entire value chain, will we be able to find raw material, or does a cluster of, let's say, 80 to 100 villages around us have the potential to provide for the raw material across the entire value chain? We may be starting with a dot on that chain, but eventually, do we have the potential? If no, no. If yes, check. Then the third is, we now break down the value chain links into activities, right? It's an elaborate process. Right. And if these activities can then be categorized into home level, which is 0 to no investment, very little investment, right, that any family can take care of. Then village level, slightly more investment, slightly more organization, a group of people, etc., etc. Then the third one is nodal, where there are things such as, let's say, market interfacing, right, branding, and various other things which become necessary given the times. So those become the nodal activities. Right. So now look at it from these 3 principles. If we start from the bottom, you are including people from every social and financial disposition. Based on where they are, they can become part of Graamam. Right? If they cannot invest anything, they can just grow aloe vera. Right? If they are growing aloe vera, there is someone else who is pulping it in a group. Right? And someone else who is making the gel and whatever the fluid, and then making a soap. Someone else makes a soap. Someone else grows gongura. Someone else makes paper out of it. Someone else makes the packaging. Right? The whole thing is about the soap eventually. So now, who is the most important component in all of this?
No one.
Right? Everybody needs everybody, and they over a period of time, it's very easy for them to realize that they're earning because their neighbor is doing something.
Right.
Right? Really? Social cohesion with economy as an incentive. Right? And if we go to the first principle, which is eco-friendly, it is already taken care of that whatever you do, whichever enterprise endeavor that you're into, that's not harming soil, air and water. So that's already checked.
Right.
And the whole local raw material thing, just make sure that you create those intricate value supply chains right there, that the more complicated that becomes, the more stronger your interdependence pattern becomes. Right? So that's the economic model. Now we've gone through about 11 iterations.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, and the 12th one is what we're super happy with. And the moment we started making our first product using this thing, so grow the millet, hand process the millet, pan roast the millet into these crispies, and the moment we were done, we started getting
Orders.
And we're not there yet, but it's a good start.
So what all do you have?
Right now we have close to about 40
Wow.
products.
All food based?
Yeah, so the way it happened is, when we started thinking about the economic model right at the beginning, we did a survey of the local renewable natural capital, because that becomes the basis for the entire economic model. What can be renewed? And when we documented the entire thing in about 80 to 100 village clusters, what we realized is, and then we brought in a bunch of friends who are experts and who would say, with these renewable raw material, these are the kind of products that one can make, which are market worthy. And when we found the pattern was that you could have 3 different kinds of product categories: food, personal care and home care. When you look at it, every bioregion gives you enough to fulfill those needs. Right? Food, personal care, home care. Right. So we thought that could be a universal model. You would still need something to cleanse yourself, but what raw material is available in Kashmir to do it will be different. But we're also endowed with the same, with some other raw material which meets the same purpose, right? So in that sense, it can be a universal model. So after that, we figured these are the 3 categories of products that we'll make, and we'll never get into missiles and TVs and diapers and all of that. Diapers maybe we will, and sanitary napkins too. We're working on those too as of now. So yeah, that is the
Got it. And how long these 11 iterations have been over what period?
7 years. 7 years. People got very frustrated. I mean, a lot of people who were watching, they would say, you're taking 7 years, we've made 50 families richer. And the thing is that we're not in that game. We're not in that rush to meet numbers, meet those goals and all. Yeah, the whole idea was, how do we create that transition bridge from state A to state B?
Right. And so when you talk about Protovillage, I mean, it itself being a prototype, and in many cases, I think the way that I've understood it, you are experimenting, innovating, creating for others to replicate and for the world to also take on. So how are you bridging that, or how are you creating that linkage from what happens here to the world outside?
Yeah. So at the moment, we're just beginning on the online versions of dissemination, because right from COVID time, we started hearing a lot about resilience, and a lot of people asking questions. It's not like we have answers. I don't think anybody has answers, but the thing is that we all contribute our bits and pieces, right? We've done a little bit of work, and there are a few things that we know that within our experience it has worked, right? And this can contribute to the greater good. So we are beginning our we are maybe a couple of months away from starting our own online dissemination thing that we are super excited about. But on the long run, what we want to do is, long run is not too far away. Now when I see it, it's going to happen in 2025, given everything else. We are deciding on a fellowship program.
Okay.
Where people from different districts would come with the knowledge of their bioregion and go back with all the tools and the frameworks. They get trained, they go back to their native districts, and then spread resilience with economy and education. So their entry points are like smooth as butter.
Right.
They're only going to go and tell the villagers, okay, we know a few ways to get rich. Crudely put, right? And that wouldn't cause a lot of resistance.
Right.
Whereas when I started it, it was all ideals, this, that, respect Mother Earth. All of those are important. I still stand by them. But the thing is, I've figured out probably how to communicate them in a way that is well received.
And so I think there are already people who are coming here and picking up learnings, right? So how are they hearing about you, and who are the people who actually come?
So basically through volunteers, they come, they spend a longish amount of time, and then they decide to take something with them and bring more people. And then there are blogs written. I recently learned there was something written in the Yale University's blog as well about Protovillage. And then there is Vikalp Sangam, which is a beautiful organization with lots of ideas and sustainable development and all of those things. They also have an article on Proto. So people tell me that I don't know how the information spreads, because we've not proactively gone out and said this is what we do, etc., etc. If you go 15 villages far and beyond, they wouldn't know about Proto. They don't know about Proto in my hometown, right? We were so busily buried into this soil here. Now is the time when we are just getting our heads out and we are thinking, okay, let's start sharing.
And so if you are sharing, what would be the things that you would share in education and economy? Like, would you I think you were you said the documented version of the curriculum on the education front, and on economy, what would you?
Economy also the same framework of Graamam. So Graamam is being built as a framework that can be contextualized to any region.
Right.
right? They would do their own surveys of renewable capital and all of these things, and then they would also identify which products, which enterprises that are possible given their natural endowments, and based on that, how do they tweak the framework? How do they build the body around their framework? And so it's a completely contextual, customizable framework.
So, what was the way forward for Protovillage look like? So, one, I can see there is a path to sharing this knowledge more widely. But what all are those projects or those missions that you're excited about over here?
Yeah, so now the one thing that I'm super excited about is finishing the prototype. I think it's a matter of another 6 or 7 months. And
Wait, finishing the prototype.
Yeah, the prototype.
So the Protovillage is done.
Full version of Protovillage.
Amazing. Okay.
And then of course it's a lifelong refinement process and all of that. But the first full iteration is done.
But that is pretty.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Super excited about it. And the second is, being the prototype, we need to create a method for it to get replicated.
Right.
So we built the models for economy and education to do that part. Right. So we are building them into blueprints and frameworks in such a way that it can get customized to any region.
Right.
And to take that forward, it cannot be one small team, it cannot be one individual. So we are conceptualizing a fellowship, which is a team-based fellowship, and each team would take a district, and they work and they get supported for as many years as they would need, because I don't believe 1 year and 2 years and then you can draw up a graph and say social changes happen and all that.
Right.
Doesn't work. It's just too magical to be real. So the idea is, I've not met a single person, Girish, in all of my years in this field, who has no intention to make a difference. Everybody is driven to be good, right? All that we want to do is pick a few of them and say, here are the tools. And everybody also has a constraint, despite all the good intentions. Chula bhi to jalna hai ghar mein. They need to run their house. So they cannot be in this without any reward, without any incentive and all of these things. So in our fellowship, my lookout right now is to find organizations, the partners who can support those fellows and say, you go do what you need to do. And we're there to take care of you guys, because you're doing something for the country, something for the planet, and it's all good. So I'm currently on the lookout for that. And I hope by 2025 we not only have the design of the fellowship, but also the whole support infrastructure for them and partnerships, everything in place. And it's just that we need to have the right frameworks and a solid set of people. And I'm sure we can find 3,000 awesome people.
Yeah. And if you're watching this, then you can consider applying in 2025.
Yes.
So take this to closure, I think one question that I have for you is, if a genie appeared and gave you 3 wishes, what would you wish for?
Well, I think the first one that I would wish for is for all of us to realize how important love is in our life, and to start valuing it more than anything else. And second, I would ask is for people to encourage each other to find something beautiful to do with the time that they have. That's a strength, I would believe. And the third, if I'm allowed to, I would ask for 3 more.
No, not allowed. That is one that you're not allowed.
Right. Yeah, and then give everybody good health. Give everybody good health and lots of peace, the way the world was supposed to be. Yeah,
Thank you so much, Kalyan. Lovely to have this conversation.
Absolutely.
Thanks everyone for watching or listening, and we will see you soon. Yeah, continue.
Yeah. I'm absolutely okay. I'm just worried.
About the wire, no?
Yeah. This guy is just badly injured in a.
This is
Simba.
And this was Scotty.
Scotty, yeah. This still is Scotty. And
No, I never got it.
yeah.
Okay, Simba, let's go.
Yes, Simba, go now.
Nope.
Go now.
Okay.
Come on, go on, Simba. यार इज्जत बचाओ यार.